1,000,004, 1,000,005, 1,000,006. Here we go.
Stingray is first away, followed by a Dino Ferrari and an Alfa Romeo.
In sales, there's a strategy called negative reverse selling. By trying to convince a customer not to buy your product, they're forced to explain why they wanted it in the first place, thereby defending their position and essentially selling it to themselves. It's a clever psychology trick usually employed to sell products made for an extremely niche audience. In this case, a race package trim of the Corvette. In 1967, a man named Zora Arkus-Duntov was appointed Corvette chief engineer. He had already impressed General Motors with the Vette's second-generation chassis, a design that added independent rear suspension, cleverly crafted from spare parts to keep costs low. Zora had a vision of the Corvette as a track-capable race car, one which could beat Ford's new Shelby Cobra. But GM was hesitant. Racing had become taboo, thanks to the AMA's ban of speed-related advertising, resulting from the 1955 tragedy at Le Mans. Nonetheless, everyone was curious what the new 427 big block was capable of, so Zora assembled a secret team to develop it into a Cobra crusher. What he didn't know is that they already had a customer, Don Yenko. Yenko owned the most famous Chevy performance dealership in the world. His name was practically synonymous with horsepower, thanks to his work on aftermarket Camaros and Chevelles. An avid racing enthusiast himself, Yenko earned a sponsorship from the Sunray DX Oil Company to help expand their motorsports marketing initiative. Sunray wanted to debut at Sebring the next year, and Yenko had a direct line to GM's president to make it happen. A few calls later, and Zora was finally greenlit to build the racing Corvette he had always dreamed of. Zora and his team took the Corvette's 7-liter V8 and renovated it from the ground up. They gave it a new forged steel crankshaft and forged connecting rods. Aluminum pistons and cylinder heads were used to keep weight low. The compression ratio was increased to 12.5 to 1, and a solid lifter camshaft gave it a more aggressive exhaust burble. The setup is estimated to make over 550 horsepower. But to even be offered the opportunity to add this engine, buyers would first need to pay extra for the heavy-duty disc brakes, upgraded suspension option, posi-traction rear end, and 4-speed M22 rock crusher transmission. The new car was dubbed L88, and GM wanted to keep it off public streets as much as possible, due to their relationship with the AMA. Even Zora didn't want the L88 sold to just anyone. He wanted these special order models to fall into the hands of only the most dedicated Corvette enthusiasts, the type of people who would actually bring their car to the track. To achieve these backward standards, the L88 was made an intentionally impractical offering. The upgraded power plant required 103 octane fuel to run properly, something that wasn't even available to much of the country. And you couldn't purchase the car with a radio, heater, or even air conditioning. These harsh facts would discourage most buyers who only wanted a casual driving experience. But to a hardcore racing enthusiast, the drawbacks would be seen as part of the thrill, a true test of their devotion. In fact, Chevy didn't even market the trim and understated its power output, claiming only 430 horses rested under the hood, when in reality, it was much closer to 600. It was almost as if they were ashamed of the monster they'd created, too scared of the inevitable wrath of insurance companies. Racing teams, seeing the spec sheet, would know what the L88 was capable of, while your average roadgoer would opt for the more affordable 435 horsepower L71 instead. As a result, only 216 cars were ever sold with the L88 motor option. And many of those rare examples were pushed to their limits in competition. With Don Yenko behind the wheel and sporting Sunray's livery, the L88 finished 10th in its racing debut at Sebring, a strong start to a long winning career. L88 powered Vettes quickly became the stuff of legends in the racing world. The Owens Corning L88 took home a GT class victory at the 24 Hours of Daytona in both 69 and 70, cementing its spot as the most successful winning Corvette in history. Other achievements include Yenko's showroom build that set lap records in '68, and Old Scrappy, the Ferrari imposter. The success on the circuit and the legendary stories that followed began to draw attention to the L88, and more buyers started to take notice and advantage of the option on showroom floors. Sales for the motor increased rapidly each year. Starting out with only 20 sold in the first year, Chevy was moving over 100 of them just 2 years later. But sadly, 1969 would mark the end of this legendary Corvette. The car had reached too high a level of notoriety, and the 427 motor was replaced by a larger 454 in 1970. This was the final nail in the coffin for the L88, but its incredible legacy lives on. Today, all L88 cars are worth six figures. C2 models are inevitably valued the highest thanks to their rarity, but even a well-loved C3 can fetch a pretty penny. If you take a look through the list of most expensive Corvettes sold at auction, you'll immediately notice that most of them have the L88 motor. General Motors' attempts to downplay the car only serve to feed an unquenchable fire in the heart of Corvette collectors. The undying desire to own one of these legendary machines has resulted in an astronomical market, with this award-winning $3.85 million sale topping the charts. So yeah, Chevy wouldn't sell you the L88, but it wasn't exactly meant for public roads. In fact, you probably couldn't handle it anyway. Does that make you want it more? Thanks for watching, and remember, don't subscribe.